Welcome to Gen Z Money, episode 1. First step is believing you can do it. Whether you believe you can do it or you believe you cannot do it, you are right. If you believe you cannot do it or if you don't want to do it, then you don't have to do it. You don't have to become wealthy. But if there's one thing about wealth that I've learned, is wealth gives you options.
Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it, and I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding. 'Cause you got me holding.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Gen Z podcast with your host, James Bowman. And this episode is mainly to just kind of help Gen Z just figure out life and money. Because let's be honest, most of us weren't taught this stuff in school. In fact, we were taught to never discuss this stuff ever with anyone. So that's why I made this podcast. That's what this podcast is about. Not only trying to figure out finances, but to really answer everyone's questions on everything from credit scores, credit cards, home buying, anything financial, and even life things. And there aren't many places that at least our generation can go and learn these things. But these are also things that aren't limited to just our generation. Every generation has to deal with it, and they all choose to deal with it a different way. So if you know anyone who you think would benefit even a little bit from this podcast, then send them over. And if they listen to an episode and they decide, you know what, I already knew all this stuff, because this is really a beginner platform. This isn't for your hedge fund managers. This is for the 22-year-old just graduating college, and he's just trying to figure out how to get a job or how to rent an apartment for the first time and things like that. So with this pilot episode, I really just want the listeners to kind of get to know me and get to know how I've come to where I am and basically what makes me qualified to talk on a topic. Because, let's be honest, who's going to tune in to a 23-year-old kid who, is he's just starting out life and just started experiencing this stuff? So who's going to tune in and listen to him? Like, what credibility does he have? And so I kind of just want to, put a little bit out about myself, and you guys can choose whether you want to listen or not, or if you want to listen to the advice I have, because honestly, I don't know everything. And anybody who tells you they know everything, they're lying and they're arrogant. We can all grow and learn. And so even if you take away one thing from this podcast, then I'll be completely happy, honestly. Just one thing you didn't know, and you could learn 100 things. But I just want to start off with, where does my money journey begin with finances? And I will be the first to say, I grew up in a low-income household, a single-parent household. My parents were divorced at a younger age. And so I got to learn throughout the years, by experience, things not to do with money. And it's nothing against my parents. My parents did a great job raising me, so there's no attack on them. But money was never really talked about in my household at all. And if it was, it always had a negative connotation to it. And so I was always grown up to think, the rich are evil and the wealthy should pay 99% of all taxes in the whole country. And, all these negative connotations that come with money, not having it as I grew up. And so it took me a while to shift my mindset from thinking of money in a bad way and now thinking of it in such a good way and what it can do for people. So grew up in a lower income household. We didn't have money. And so with that being said, I decided when I was 17, once I graduated high school, that I was just going to join the military, because what I was doing at that time, it wasn't working. And so I had enough recollection to realize it wasn't where I was, just wasn't where I needed to be. And so I joined the military at 17. I graduated basic training at 18, went to AIT and stuff like that. And that's really where my money journey began, because I never really had, like, yeah, I had small jobs in high school that paid for things like going out to eat with friends or going to prom or paying off all that senior debt. Man, I don't even want to get into that this episode. Just know I had a whole lot of money I owed to the high school, but luckily I was able to work it and get that taken care of before I graduated. But anywho, joined the military at 18. So in basic training, you get paid, but you don't get to see that money. Like, you don't use it unless you go to like the PX to get up the shops there to get like shaving cream and stuff like that needed for basic socks, underwear, but you never really get to spend that money. And so when I finally got to AIT, I finally got my phone back and I was able to look at my balance, and I had all this money from the month and a half, 2 months I was in basic training. Most money I ever had. I never had more than $1,000 to my name ever. So here I am, 18 years old, and now I've got multiple $1,000s in my account. So you guys can probably see where this is going. And at this time, I didn't have, when you're in the military and you're single, I was single at the time, you don't have to pay for housing or food. It's all supplied by the military. So guess what I did? Went to the mall, got all the new shoes, all the new clothes, all that. I finally, at that time, I had opened up my first credit card. And thank God, no one taught me this, but thank God I was smart enough to say, okay, I'm going to spend money on the credit card, but I'm going to pay it off every single month. And for those of you guys who do not know, when you have a credit card, any outstanding balance you have, any money you have spent on the card, if you do not pay it within the same month of spending it or the month after, you're charged interest. So if you spend $100, and let's just say the interest rate is 18%, every year that balance is on that card, you're going to pay 18% more. So if you spend $100 and you have 18%, then you'll owe $18 extra at the end of that year. And of course, it breaks down to monthly. So that's just a quick overview of that. But I was smart. I never ended up getting into that cycle of paying credit card interest. So I always paid it off on time every single month, which ended up doing me wonders. It really helped me not fall into the trap that many people do. So anyway, I get the credit card. I'm spending it, swiping it, but I'm paying it off as I go. And fast forward, I graduate AIT, and again, I have nothing. I have my paycheck coming in. I get to my first duty station, and it's December. And we're going into Christmas break and stuff like that. So we're not really doing anything in the military around that time. January rolls around, and everybody knows what happens in January, February, March in that time frame. Guess what we get? We get that fat tax refund check. And so the day that I get my tax refund, I remember it was like $3,000. Again, guys, I know nothing about anything about finances, but I get a $3,000 tax refund that year. And me and my buddy were sitting in a barracks room looking at each other, and we're like, bro, why don't I just go buy a car? Like, we're Ubering around, we're taking taxis around everywhere, because that's what you do in your early military days when you don't have friends and none of you guys have cars. You just taxi everywhere, Uber everywhere. So I'm like, man, let's just go get a car. And at that time, I had already made up in my mind that I was always going to save a minimum. I'm always going to have $1,000 minimum in my account at all times. I don't know why I thought about that, but I just knew that was my plan. So first we go to Navy Federal, and I get a pre-approval for a car loan of, at the time, it was a pre-approval of $15,000. And so I was under the impression that I can just go to the dealership, have pre-approval for $15,000, and I get to buy a $15,000 car, and I just take a loan for the whole thing. But when I got the pre-approval, they pre-approved me for 15,000, but that was only if I put 3,000 down, which would total the 15. So they'd only loan 12. So me being, not knowing, I go to the car dealership. I'm talking to the guy like, yeah, I'm pre-approved for 15,000. And he shows me this car, the car I have now, a Nissan Maxima 2011. And this was back in 2017. So it was like a 5 or 6 year old car. He's showing me this car. He's like, look, man, it's right above 15,000. So if you can, come up with the little difference, we'll be golden. I'm like, yeah, it was like 15,700. So I'd have to come out of pocket $700 or so, I thought. Anyway, so we get into the finance office. We call the bank. The bank's like, okay, we'll send you over that $12,000 check right now. And the car dealership guy's like, wait a minute. He said he was pre-approved for 15,000. And they were like, yes, but he has to put 3,000 down. So any of you guys who've been in a car dealership, no offense. If you work in a car dealership, you might be a good guy. But I feel like if you don't come in there with control, with a backbone, you get completely taken advantage of. I came in there that time with no backbone, just a blank check essentially, and I got taken advantage of. So the guy told me, he's like, okay, look, if you put down $3,000, I'll talk to my manager and we'll have the $700 taken off. And at the time I knew, I'm like, man, I really didn't want to spend the cash I have on this. But, I was young and dumb. And again, I didn't have a backbone at the time to just walk away. So I said, okay, fine. So I gave him every single dime out of my bank. I think I had like 3,000. Let's just say I had $3,200. So go ahead, buy the car. I'm thinking, okay, you know what? It is what it is. Then before I'm able to leave the office, he said, okay, do you have insurance lined up? And I'm like, what do you mean? Wait, what? No, I'll get insurance later. He's like, no, you can't leave. You can't drive off in the car if you don't have an active insurance policy. That's just how it works. And I never knew that. First of all, I never knew you needed insurance on a car. I never knew it was mandatory. I always knew everybody had it, but I didn't know anything. They don't teach this stuff in school. So at this point, I'm there. I have no money. So I call up USAA insurance. I'm like, hey, I think I was 18 at the time. Hey, buying a new car. I need insurance. So we go through the whole process of getting insurance on the car, and they ask me for what do I want my deductible to be. And I'm like, well, what's a deductible? Then they tell me, well, if you get into a car accident, it's essentially what you're required to contribute to the total payout. So if the car accident is worth $25,000 in damages, I have to pay $1,000, and then the insurance will cover the rest. And I remember thinking, I'm like, at that moment when they asked me what I want my deductible to be, I was like, what can it be? They were like, it can be $250, it can be $500, it can be $750, it can be $1,000, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, let's do the $250. And, the lowest one. Even though I knew in my head, I'm like, man, I do not have $250. Like, if I drive off this lot right now and I get into a car accident and I have to cuff out $250, I don't have that. Again, at the time, I had no idea how insurance worked. I just thought, okay, well, if I get in a car accident, I just hand the driver $250 and go about my way. No, I literally had no clue how it really worked. So with that being said, I'm like, man, I don't have any money, so I'm just going to get the lowest deductible. And they were like, okay, your insurance is going to be $450 a month. And I'm like, whoa, I have to, a month? And think, at the time, I want to say I was making, because housing and food were taken care of, I think around the time I was making like $600 every 2 weeks. You can fact check me on that, but I think that's what I was making, $600 to $700. So I was like, man, that's basically a whole paycheck right there just going to insurance. That doesn't even include the car payment. So I'm like, man, okay, so what happens if they were like, yeah, if you get a higher deductible, it'll bring down your insurance. And so I'm thinking, okay, let's just go with the highest deductible. Even though I was like, I don't have a dime in my pocket. Let's just go with the highest deductible. And I'm petrified. I know that I made the biggest financial mistake of my life up to that point, not only buying the car, but also this whole insurance thing. And so I'm like, okay, let's go with the $1,000 deductible. I'm terrified. And then I neglect to mention, like, there was a hurricane going on in the area, or it was like either right before a hurricane or right after, because it was in South Georgia. And so that's why I was like, man, I could go out there. It's raining and pouring. I can go out there and just crash, and the car's gone, and I have no money to pay my deductible, and I'm in a crappy spot. So anyways, so we ended up getting $1,000 deductible, and to activate the insurance, it was in that. So the higher deductible brought my payment down to like $300 a month, which is still crazy. But I'm an 18-year-old single guy, and yeah, you guys know. So I ended up. They said to activate the insurance, it was going to cost $450 for like activation fee and stuff like that. And I did not have that money. Thankfully, which isn't really thankfully looking back at it, but thankfully I had always paid off my credit card. So I had the available balance on my credit card that I could put the insurance on. And so I went ahead and paid for it. We got the car, everything was good. And we went back to the barracks. And I remember after my buddy left, he went back to his barracks room. I was sitting in my barracks room. And I literally remember thinking to myself, like, what have I done? Like, why in the world did I do this? And it was just like, as soon as I walked out of the dealership, I felt just like I got slimed. Like, I felt so grimy and slimy. Like I just got completely taken advantage of by not only the car dealership, but the insurance and everything. So it was rough. Anyway, get back to the barracks room, and at that point, it was at that moment I realized something has got to change, because now I've got basically a whole paycheck and some of my next paycheck just going towards a car payment, which was $300 a month. It was a $12,000 loan at 18% interest. 18%. I didn't have good, like, I I had never missed a payment or anything, but I had such low credit history that, because I only had a credit card for maybe 3 months. So I ended up with 18% interest, $300 car payment a month, plus $300 in insurance. So one check was completely gone to car note and car insurance. And at that moment, I realized, like, okay, something has got to change, because I cannot live in this fear, in this uncomfort forever. So I started devising a plan. I'm like, you know what? I am in storm mode. First of all, first order of business, I have got to pay off this credit card, because I had never carried a balance for more than a month. So I was like, I have got to pay off this $450 activation fee from the insurance company before I do anything else. I'm not eating out, I'm not going out with friends, not drinking, none of that. I'm saving every single dime. As soon as I get paid, it's going straight to the credit card to get that paid off. So the next order of business, and I think I got that done within 1 or 2 paychecks. So the next order of business was, okay, I have $1,000 deductible. That means I need a minimum of $1,000 in my bank account just in case I get into a car accident. Like, that's all I was thinking about. Driving to work, driving from work. Like, look, if I crash this car, I don't even have enough to pay the deductible. I'll probably go to jail. They'll probably torch me. I don't know what they're going to do. I've never been in this circumstance. Nobody's ever taught me. And I was too afraid, because I felt dumb to go and ask for help from other people. So I dealt with it on my own. And so if I would have went and talked to other people that had more wisdom and understood these things, then I probably would have been in a much better place. But young and dumb, hey, cocky. So I ended up saving up $1,000, and that was the most liberating point in my life up to that point when it comes to finances. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know. All I knew is I needed to save $1,000 just in case I crashed this car. And I did it. And it might have took a month or two, maybe 3 months, but I did. I don't remember exactly how long it took, but that was the point that I realized, like, okay, you know what? I might be able to do this thing called life. And from there, things got a lot better. So at this part of my life, I finally got the money saved up, and I decide that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna have fun and stuff, but I'm going to be aggressively paying off my car loan because originally it was at 12,000 at 18%. And you guys that understand this stuff with interest rates and things like that, you guys are probably gasping because look, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I would never do it again, but it is what it is. So I start aggressively paying off my car. I'm talking every paycheck I'm dumping 300, 600, 900. Every tax refund I get, I'm throwing it at it. I'm still single in the barracks, so food and housing is paid for. All I got to pay for are things like Wi-Fi, cell phone service, and going out. And so I'm just every single time I get paid, I'm just dumping money on money on it, dumping money on it, and I end up getting my car paid off. And very soon after that, me and my girlfriend at the time, you guys know Dawn, we get married. And so then we start the transition because once you get married in the military, now you have to move into housing and stuff like that. And it's just a big transitional period. And, she was awesome because there are not many people who are willing to sacrifice the way she does. And so we realized once we got married, okay, the military is going to give us a bonus. You get a basic allowance for housing when you're in the military and you're married. And at the time, I think it was about $13.50 a month. And we were looking at stuff in the area to rent. And we decided, like, look, it's just me and you. We don't have any children. Let's just get the absolute smallest thing we can and just save as much money as we possibly can. And she was down. She was still in nursing school, so we had to figure that out, which we ended up, she was going to school locally and for the beginning. So we lived within walking distance of her school for her nursing school. And we decide, okay, we're going to get this little $700 apartment. It's going to be $700 for maybe utilities and stuff. It'll probably be another 100. That'll bring our total monthly housing to $800. So now the military is giving us $13.50, and we're only going to use 800 of it to pay for housing. And then I redact what I said earlier. My car was not paid off at this time when we got married and we moved into each other. But the extra money we had, the extra $650 we had, or $550, I started throwing on my car to pay it off even faster and faster and faster until it got paid off. And so her being willing to sacrifice, same as me being willing to sacrifice to get just a smaller thing. It's not to impress anybody. Nobody's going to come over and be like, wow, you have this extravagant house. Like, no, it was just what we needed. And there was plenty of space for us at the time. And we ended up doing it. And it was such a great idea to do and executing it. And we didn't go out and just buy thousands of dollars worth of furniture. We went and got $100 mattress from Walmart and $100 bed frame. We slept on that for a few years. Then we upgraded as we went instead of just going out and buying everything and getting more payments, because the only payment we had was a car note, and I wanted to get that thing out of there. So we get married, we start saving up. My wife ends up having to finish out her nursing school in Savannah, Georgia, which was about an hour from where we lived. And so she was driving an hour there and an hour back, essentially 4 to 5 days a week for schooling. And at that time, my car was paid off. And I'm like, you know what? I really want her driving something safe. I want her driving something reliable. And I want her driving. I want to know that she's going to get there and get home with no issues. Which brings us to money mistake number 2. We went out and got her a brand new 2018 Nissan Sentra. And because our old car payment was $300 and the new car payment was $300, it was as if it never changed. You know, we got rid of one car payment and went and just got another. And on one side of the coin, it gave me peace of mind knowing like I don't have to worry about this car. It's got a warranty on it if it goes bad and stuff like that, which we ended up, if I compare my first car purchase to my second car purchase, it was night and day because I came in there. We came in there knowing we are not leaving with a car today, no matter how good the deal is. We're just shopping. We're looking. We want to see what we're going to get. And we wanted the absolute cheapest thing that would never break down and we just didn't have to worry about, which is how we came up with a Nissan Sentra. So we go into the local car dealership. They're quoting me like $19,500. So I already told them like we're not buying today. There's nothing you can do. You can tell us it's $10,000 and we're still not going to buy today. But if you give me your best number now, you know, we're buying within the next month, but it's just not today. And 19.5 was the best number that they could come up with. So we go home, and I end up calling a dealership in Jacksonville, Florida, like 2 hours away. And I tell them straight up, like, because this is how I know I had a backbone at that time. I call them, and this is how the conversation goes. Welcome to Nissan, you know, Atlantic, or blah, blah, blah. Hey, look, I don't care. This is what I tell them. I say, look, I don't care which salesman I talk to. This is what I want. And this is the information I gave him. I said, I want this car, this 2018 Nissan Sentra, in any color besides red for $18,000. If you can quote me the price and send me the quote in my email for $18,000 for this car in any color but red, we will be down there Saturday to pick it up. And she passed me through to somebody. I told him that. He said, okay, I'll see what I can do and I'll give you a call back. Maybe, and I didn't only do this for Jacksonville. I did this for, I think it was like 3 or 4 dealerships in the immediate area within two hours or so. I did it for 3 or 4 of them. And there was only one, the one in Jacksonville, Florida, that called me back. He said, look, I got it for $18,000. What time can I expect you this weekend? I said, you're going to see me Saturday, blah, 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 this time. And that was it. Hung up, went down, got the car. There was no shenanigans. Yeah, they tried to sell me a warranty, but I'm not big on warranties. We'll get into that in another podcast episode, but I'm not big on warranties. I don't get them. They tried to sell me on that, but otherwise it was $18,000 and that was it. We walked out. We got our $300 car payment like we wanted to. Like we walked out with our chest held high. We had already shopped insurance to know what it would be like. We done all our due diligence. Everything I could have done with my first, like everything I did not do with the first one, I went ahead and did with this one. And that's why I feel like I had a backbone then. And although I don't suggest buying a new car, I think the way I did it was the best way I could have done it. I saved about $1,500 just by driving an extra, 2 hours to pick it up. And we got what we wanted and we got what we needed at the time. So we got this car and of course we wanted to get rid of the payment. It wasn't we weren't thinking about holding the loan around for long. So, I'm saving money aggressively. My wife's still going to school, so we're paying for her to go through school. Trying not to rack up as much student loan debt as we possibly could for her. And so we're paying for school, paying for books, paying for the car, and I'm also saving money. And I remember I got up to like $10,000 in saving. And I remember this day. I remember it clear as day because it put my life on a trajectory that I never even knew was imaginable. My wife asked me, we're sitting there looking at the savings account. She asked me, babe, what are you saving for? And at that moment, I had no clue. I told her, I was like, I have no idea. I'm just addicted to saving. At this point, I'm addicted to saving money because it feels good. It feels secure. Every $100 I put in my savings account, I just feel like there's another security blanket going over me that if something goes wrong, then we are 100% fine. And because I didn't have an answer for her, I kind of felt like Like, okay, wait a minute. What am I saving for? And that's when I went ahead. I went on Google. I'm like, I Google like, so what do you save for? Or like, where should you put your savings or something like that? And I just started Googling stuff because I had no idea. And I found this huge, humongous world of finances with investing, saving money, paying off debt, insurance, and all this different stuff, all the things that no one ever taught me. Like everyone's taught like you should save money, but no one's ever taught to what do you do with your saved money. So, and I went down the hole. And the first channel I found was Graham Stephan. I'll go ahead and link to his YouTube channel in the show notes below, and you guys can find that. Honestly, great dude. I don't really keep up with his content now, but at the time, he was all about saving money, how to live for less, how to still enjoy life by saving money, and where to put your money. And with him, I learned about index funds, which we'll get into on this podcast. Not this episode, but future episodes. We're definitely going to be talking a lot about index funds. Anyone who knows me, I am such a huge real estate guy on how to get into real estate and just where to put the money after you saved it. Because once you save to a certain point, like it doesn't matter. Like you can save $1 million in a bank account and you would feel just as secure as if you saved 100,000. Because let's be honest, what's going to come up in your life that's going to cost more than $100,000 to cover? Like, and then so going down those, I found Bigger Pockets, which is a big money show, real estate related stuff. And the biggest one, which had the most impact, which keeps me extremely humble, is Dave Ramsey and his team. And so I'm also going to link his podcast and YouTube channel in the show notes below so you guys can check it out. But anybody who's starting in this money journey, just trying to figure out life and finances and learn the things you were never taught, I always point them toward, after my podcast, of course, which comes out, very soon. I always point them to Dave Ramsey because he's broken it down. Although I don't agree with everything he says, I could never take away from what he's taught me. I still listen to his show and everything. So that's going to be linked down below. And yeah, so that's where it really started with learning to invest and things like that. So without getting too far down the rabbit hole, with real estate and stuff like that, at least on this podcast. Of course, we're going to have plenty of episodes to go down, but I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. My wife and I ended up purchasing our first home in January of 2020, which was recently, right before the pandemic. Crazy, right? And we purchased it with the intent that we knew we were going to live there while I was stationed at Fort Stewart. And then once we left, we would rent it out. And essentially, our mortgage ended up being around $700 a month. It was a small 4-bed, 2-bath house, and we ended up renting it. Now we own it as a rental, and it collects $1,475 a month. And it's been a great property. We lived in it for about a year and a half, so a little bit longer than we expected. But once I separated from the military and my wife graduated, because all of this happened so quickly, I ended up separating from the military in December of 2020. And then my wife graduated December of 2020. And so we knew that she was going to be working her nurse job in the Savannah area, which is, we knew, her driving an hour there, an hour back, multiple times a week, it wasn't going to continue to work for us. So we actually end up purchasing another property here in Savannah, and this is where we live, and we enjoy it. I now work in the ports outside the military, saving money, of course. She's a nurse, and that's what we're doing. So we had our first home. It's now a rental. We ended up purchasing here in Savannah. Of course, we stay way below our means. We wanted to find the smallest thing for the lowest price that would work for us, and we found it, and we purchased it. And we're going to have plenty of episodes on how to purchase a property. I'm already in talks with bring on a realtor to just discuss the things you need, bring on a loan officer to help you guys through that process. Because again, this is something that should be taught in school because everyone should own a home at some point, but it's not. And it sucks, right? But it is what it is. So, of course, in 2020, the pandemic hit. I was still in the military, so there wasn't really, unfortunately, a lot of people in the country died, and a lot of people in the country lost their jobs, and the government did things like stimulus and unemployment and things like that to try and help. But unfortunately, none of that really impacted me. Yes, we still had our COVID protocols and things like that, but it didn't stop our financial journey. We were still saving money at a high rate. She was still going to school to graduate and things like that. So luckily we were okay. And it was, the second wave hadn't hit in December when I got out, but I got out knowing that I was going to be okay. Not in the military anymore. And I just want to give a shout out. Anybody in the military, listen, if you guys think that that's the only option for you, you're 100% mistaken. Never stay in the military because that's the only option, because it never is. The military has plenty of resources in and outside to help you guys. So I just wanted to give a shout out to you guys. There was a lot of naysayers that said, look, man, don't get out. The civilian world isn't all it's cut out to be. And it's really bad and all this. But they might have just been people who were afraid to get out. But regardless, I just want to let you guys know, like, it's okay out here, man. We're living, we're thriving. So yeah, that is that. So as I stated in the beginning of the podcast, my goal for this show is to kind of break things down in episodes on just the things we haven't learned, things like home buying, all the different types of taxes, starting your own business, and all the things like that. And I hope to bring on many guests who are experts in the field, because I think personally, I know a little bit about a lot of things. I want to bring on people who know a lot about a specific thing. And that way I'm not out here just giving out false information and being unrealistic, because that's what this show is about. It's bringing you to not only making your mindset to know that this is possible for anybody. Anybody can be financially free. Anyone can become wealthy. Not only the evil become wealthy. Wealth isn't evil. I want the single mom that's living in the one bed with the child. I want her to know that it's possible. These are the steps. There are people out there that are just like you that are doing it. And that's another reason I really wanted to start this podcast, is because if I do this at 45 and you guys didn't get to walk with me for the last 20 years in order to realize not only where I came from, but where I'm going, because I just, for me personally, it's a lot easier for a billionaire to sit there and say, look, all you got to do is work hard and you'll get what you need. Like, yes, I get it. They probably started from nothing also, but it doesn't really ring true when you can hear someone go through the evolution themselves. I want people to be able to go back to this episode and be like, wait a minute, James was 23. Yes, okay. Let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm 23 and I currently own 3 rental properties. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody is as fortunate and as privileged as I have been and made the choices that I have. But I'd rather start it with 3 before I have 300, because I think 3 is a lot more relatable to someone with 0 than 300 is. So that's why I'm choosing to start it now. And you guys can maybe listen to the podcast and think, wait a minute, this guy's 23, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, why am I listening to him? And you might say that now, but when we get to episode 500, hopefully it goes that long, and I'm not in the same place I have been and I am now, then, you can go back and listen to episode 1. It's like, okay, I can listen to his transition. And if he can do it, then I can do it. And it's not too late. And that's the main concept I really want to get out in this podcast, is like, 1, it's never too late. Two, anyone can do it. Any race, religion, creed, anyone can do it. You just have to, the first step is believing you can do it. Whether you believe you can do it or you believe you cannot do it, you are right. If you believe you cannot do it, or if you don't want to do it, then you don't have to do it. You don't have to become wealthy. But if there's one thing about wealth that I've learned, is wealth gives you options. And my reason for becoming wealthy, it's not because I want to be rich. It's not because I want to drive the Lambos. It's not because I want to drive the Corvettes. I don't want to live in the big house on the hill. There's two things in life I want to do. I want to be able to give outrageously. I want to be able to go into a restaurant, order a water, and leave $100 tip without even blinking. I want to be able to go out and buy 3 single mothers a car, pay it off, give it to them just because, to help them propel them forward. I want to have the time to not have to go to work, and I can come here to this platform and talk to all of you guys, educate you guys, bring you guys the knowledge that you don't have to pay for. I don't want dimes from any of you guys. I want you guys to go out and make your dimes. And that's what I want. And I don't have children now. A lot of people, of course, you might hold that against me. Like, okay, well, he doesn't have children, so that's easy to save in his season to invest and things like that, which, okay, I'll give you that point. We have less living expenses because we don't have children. But by God, I'm going to bring on hundreds of people who do have children and that did make it. And then you guys can disprove them, because it's still possible whether you have children or not. And that's really another reason that I want to build wealth. I want others to build wealth because I want the option. I don't want to miss when I do have children. I don't want to have to miss football games because I have to work late to pay the bills. I don't want to have to miss my daughter's dance recital because I'm working late that day. I want to be able to call my boss and say, hey, boss, my kid's sick this week. I'm just going to take the week off and not have to worry about how am I going to pay the bills this month if I took a week off of work. There was a statistic floating around that 71% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency. And that's scary for me, but I'm not even in that space, and it scares me. So I can only imagine, which I did feel how it felt at a time, especially when I first bought that car. But I don't feel now what others feel. And so I want to help the world never have to feel that again. I want everyone to have a minimum of $1,000 in their bank account at all times. I want them to be able to not work late and go to their kids' soccer games, because I think parenting is like the most important thing to keep America going is parenting. Like, yeah, businesses are fine and religion is fine, but parenting is it. Because we are raising the next set of the next generation. They're coming from us. And I don't want to live that life. I want to be able to make my choices, live a flexible life. I want life to work the way I want it to, not around my work schedule. So, and I want that for everybody. I really do. And I understand that everybody won't be able to achieve it, but I promise you, listening to this podcast and implementing the things that you'll learn and the things you'll be taught with this, it will definitely put you miles closer to that finish line than where you are now. So I just want to end this first episode with a little request from you guys. If there are any topics that you guys would love to hear dedicated episodes on, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can find us on Instagram or Twitter at Gen Z Money. You can message me on Facebook. You can message me directly on Instagram or Twitter at j.bowman_REI. That's where you can find me. I'll have all those linked below in the show notes. If anybody wants to come on and tell their money story, I'm open to that. So you can also reach out to me on any social medias, or you can email me at genzmoney@gmail.com. That's money without an E. Money without a Y. And yeah. And yeah, I'd love to have some guests on to talk about different things. I've got episodes coming out on the home buying process, what it's like to be a realtor, a credit score episode, and just taxes, real estate, purchasing, single family homes, things. I've got so much in the funnel that I really want to get to. And so if there's anything else, any questions, any specific questions about anything, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to have a bunch of you guys on the show to talk about things and everything. Whether I believe in it or not, I'm willing to have the conversation and let the listeners hear what they need to hear and get the knowledge they need to. But with that being said, that's going to wrap up episode 1 of Gen Z Money. I really appreciate you guys coming out. I am your host, James Bowman. And always remember, you're only as secure as your ability to perform. So spend your life accumulating assets that can perform for you. Peace out, guys.
Even if my jokes aren't funny.